Greetings to people all around the world. Welcome to the Project Smash podcast. We are the ISCPians, Gab, Isa, Marcus, and Patrick. And for today's episode, we're going to have an in-depth discussion on a fascinating piece of Philippine literature, Carlos Bulosan's My Father Goes to Court. It's a literary text that seems very shallow and humorous on the surface, but is actually a rich and worthwhile read. We hope you stay with us throughout today's episode as we will have games in between segments as well as interviews from various people sharing their insights.
With regards to today's chosen literary text, we will talk about a much deeper discourse concerning the Marxist theory and how Carlos Bulosan used it in My Father Goes to Court. But before we dig deeper, we recommend pausing this video and checking out the link or QR code containing the literary piece. Flash on the screen. Don't worry, it's short yet worthwhile read.
Welcome back. Now that we've read the text, we've actually interviewed several people to voice out their insights. Just like you guys, we asked them to read My Father Goes to Court. Stick around and see if you share the same thoughts with some of them. We'll be flashing the first batch of interviews now.
Good day po. My name is Camille Salfruto and I'm taking up Bachelor of Science in Psychology. Ang insight ko after reading the story My Father Goes to Court by Carlos Bulosan is that he used a superficial logic to imply a realistic situation. What I felt po is satisfaction with the way that the father presented himself in the court kasi he made sure that the rich man who accused him of stealing the spirit of their wealth and happiness realized na ang buhay ay hindi nukol sa mga material na bagay na meron tayo kung saan yun yung nag-create ng pundasyon ng isang masayang pamilya, kundi ito yung tungkol talaga sa pagiging contented natin sa humble things katulad ng bonding at saka yung pakikisama sa kapwa. Unlike dun sa rich family na lagi na lamang silang isolated at saka pinagsisilbihan sila sa kahit anong kilos, ang story po ng My Father Goes to Court ay isang great story na nag-emphasize ng necessary envy na meron ang mga mayayaman sa mga mahihirap na namumuhay ng mas fulfilling na buhay kumpara sa kanila.
Hello, I'm Albert Mauro. I'm a political science student from Adamson University, Manila. So the story is actually interesting. We get to see the irony, the contrast between the two families, yung rich and yung poor. So this is actually relevant. The rich have everything they want, have everything they need. All the nutrients, sabi nga dun sa story. However, something still missing. Parang meron pa rin nagkukulang. While the poor families, they are deprived of basic necessities. No? They are deprived of luxury. Hindi tulad nung sa mga mayayaman. However, they still work their way and live their lives to the fullest. Ayan. In the story, I learned that we must always be grateful with what we have and just enjoy life. Na in the midst of challenges and difficulties, our families are very important for us. So, however, realistically, we should not romanticize this. We should start realizing that resiliency won't help us save another day or two. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ethan. So I've read My Father Goes to Court, and I feel like the story was about the rich and the poor, and I feel like it symbolizes it really well. And I feel like it was a bit satire at times. So overall, it was an enjoyable read, I would say. So
First off, I'd like to say good evening. Ako po si Dominic Narcedes. And upon reading the story, my father went to I'd like to give my simple analysis. Actually, upon reading it, it's like we get to see the divide between the rich and the poor. So if we are observant enough to be in the outside world and get to explore, as we can see, kahit sabihin natin mahirap ka or kahit ako sabihin mahirap ka, even though you're just barely making it through the day or kahit konti lang kinikita mo, it doesn't amount to the fact that Kumbaga, it doesn't amount to the love that you have for your family. It's not a matter of wealth. It's not a matter of riches. It's a matter of being there for each other. Anin mo ang yaman mo kung hindi mo man may share or masyado mong takot na mawala siya. What do the poor have to lose when they've already experienced enough much losses in their life? And as for the rich, with the amount of riches that you have, why don't you have enough courage to share what you have and be kind naman to others? Ganun naman yun eh. Ari mo naman ang yaman mo kung pag namatay ka rin, mawawala din yan. So that's my basic analysis. It's not a matter of riches or the abundance of wealth that you have. It's the joy and love that you share with one another. Even if, kahit sabihin natin walang-wala na. Just like from the song The Eagles, even if we're hungry, love will keep us alive. Alright, so that's it. That's all I can share. Thank you so much and I hope may mga natutunan. Thank you.
Good day everyone, my name is Jonel Perjulios and I am a former Hume student from Ida University. And here's my comment and reaction to the story My Father Goes to Court by Carlos Bulosan. So first of all, I really like the absurdity of the story. The rich man's crazy ideas and in the story and the poor father's argument also made me laugh. And it showed me that money doesn't make a person smart or intelligent. And honestly, this one is good and I understand it very well. There are no words in the story that made me hate it. It made its lessons and points very clear. Aside from the fact that the other family is rich and the other one is poor, and I liked how different they were. And I can see that the rich family is not as wealthy as the poor family. And I was really surprised to hear that the poor family is healthy, even though they don't have enough. They don't have enough or any good food to eat. It reminds me so much of this popular phrase, "Health is wealth." This story made me realize that it's better to live a simple, healthy life than to have a lot of money, but to live a difficult one. And it also showed me that wealth doesn't give anyone the right to take advantage of other people, and that we should be fair always and forever. So overall, I've enjoyed reading the story.
So, did you share the same thoughts with some of our interviewees? Feel free to share in the comment section.
Let's begin analyzing the text by starting with the author. Do you guys know anything about him?
So, Carlos Sampan Bulosan was a Filipino-American author, poet, and activist who lived from 1911 to 1956. He was known for a semi-fictional, semi-autobiographical novel titled America in the Heart, published back in 1946, which was actually a staple in American ethnic studies and Asian American studies classes from the 1930s to the early 1950s.
Yes, to be specific, Bulosan was born to Ilocano parents in the Philippines in Binalonan, Pangasinan. Trivia lang ha na there's a considerable debate around his actual birth date, as he himself used several dates. 1911 is generally considered to be the most reliable answer, based on his baptismal record. But according to the late Lorenzo Doyanan Sampayan, his childhood playmate and nephew, Carlos was born on November 2, 1930. Imagine, 2 years. So now, in his early life, his youth was spent in the countryside as a farmer. It is during his youth that he and his family were economically impoverished by the rich and political elite, which will become one of the main themes of his writing.
So, ayun nga, no? Many Filipinos during the American colonial period, umalis siya ng Pilipinas para makipagsapalaran sa Amerika. 17 years old siya nung umalis in the hope of finding salvation from the economic depression of his home. It is sad kasi after niyang umalis, hindi na niya nakita yung Philippines ulit eh. Hindi na siya nakabalik. So, and upon arriving in Shuttle, he was met with racism and was forced to work low-paying jobs. Basically, napakarami niyang pinagdaanan. He worked as a farm worker, harvesting grapes and asparagus, while also working other forms of hard labor in the fields of California. He also worked as a dishwasher in the famous Madonna Inn in San Luis Obispo, which opened in 1958 or almost 3 years after Bulosan had died.
Oh, wait lang ha. Pero wait. 1913 yung sinabi ni Isa na birthday. Tapos sinabi mo, 1958 yung parang 3 years after siyang mamatay. Eh di parang based doon sa mga sinabi nyo, eh di saglit lang pala yung lifespan niya. Maaga rin siyang namatay.
Sadly, as a labor organizer and socialist writer, isa siya sa mga na-blacklist during the second Red Scare noong 1950s. Back then, nagkaroon ng false accusations for subversion and treason ang mga very vocal na tao tulad ni Carlos for their social commentaries.
Yeah, na-ano ko ata yan, like, na-research ko din yan. Thus, ang nangyari, he was denied a means to provide for himself. So, sa last years ng buhay niya, nagkaroon siya ng illnesses and hardships. And to add, yung malungkot na part doon is, nagkaroon din siya ng alcoholism. Imagine, sa pinagdaanan niya, yun na lang siguro yung naging last resort na. So, it was a sad ending for him. Dying in Seattle, suffering from malnutrition and advanced stage of bronchopneumonia. Nilibing siya sa may Mount Pleasant Cemetery ng Seattle, which is the U.S. death.
Actually nga hindi agad na-appreciate yung mga works niya. Siguro for 2 decades after niyang mamatay. As in, his work talaga, talagang nakalimutan. Walang mapansin sa mga works niya. Until a group of young Asian Americans rediscovered his works and led to the republication of America is in the Heart in 1973.
Oh. Wait, pero buti na lang ha, at na-recover pa yung works niya. Kasi nga, di ba, parang based dito sa mga binabasa natin, puro insightful kasi yung mga gawa niya. And wala lang, I'm really delighted na nalaman kong nakukuha na rin niya yung deserve niya na recognition. And dagdag ko lang din based doon naman sa na-research ko, noong 2018, pinatayo ng University of California yung Bulosan Center for Filipino Studies para matuloy yung legacy naman niya sa activism through research and advocacy of the Filipino and Filipino-American community. So, yung initiative ng project, kasama doon yung pagtatayo ng physical building or some sort. Basta meron talagang pinatayong gusali para masuportahan yung research and kagaya nga ng mga nauna kong sinabi, education and advocacy. Yung center na to, ini-aim niya na maituloy nga yung iniwan ni Bulosan na legacy by uplifting the voices of the marginalized in the Filipino community in the United States and the diaspora through community-engaged research and broadly disseminating knowledge about Filipinos para na rin sa purpose nung pagpapatibay ng kanilang rights and kasama na rin doon yung kapakanan nila, yung welfare nila.
Alam mo, it's actually a good thing na his works rose to fame. And now, kasi nagkaroon ng initiative yung mga tao to continue what he started in terms of social movement. Tapos nakaka-fascinate na yung ginagawa nila ngayon, nagmi-mirror yung sa kung ano yung ginagawa ni Bulosan dati. Na yun nga, pinoportray yung experience ng growing up poor in a rural area of the Philippines. And tapos it chronicles the social and economic conditions brought by the American occupation and yung centuries ng Spanish colonialism din, no?
Oo, totoo yan. I agree doon. Parang, para sa akin, yung work niya, it really captures the push factors na nag-drive dun sa generation niya para pumunta sa United States, di ba? Dala nga nung kahirapan and yung oppression since katatapos, nung nangyari yung year na yan, parang katatapos lang natin or kakakuha lang natin ng kalayaan natin mula sa Spanish, Americans, Japanese, and like Bulosan, maraming mga Pilipino na naghangad nung magandang kinabukasan. Kahit now, back then, we are in the face ng isang exploitative European-American culture. Diba? Dun sa United States.
Yes, and yun nga, from his stories, gumawa siya ng napakaraming literary texts. And from there, the most popular story, which many people believe, My Father Goes to Court is one of several short stories in Carlos Bulosan's The Laughter of My Father, na na-publish in the United States noong December 1942. Based yung story on Philippine folklore and maraming underlying social commentaries. The piece interprets a protest against the economic progress of his time and depicts Filipino culture, traits, and way of life. Let's analyze more of this later.
And so, guys, buhay pa ba kayo dyan? Or like, clear pa ba na maano yung knowledge na
Kaya pa naman.
sinasabi namin? Kaya pa ba? So,
Kaya
before we proceed further in analyzing the text, we have a little game for you guys. A jigsaw puzzle. Simply scan the QR code or click the link that will be flashing on the screen in a few seconds. Feel free to pause the video while you are playing so you don't miss out on the discussion.
So, welcome back. Hopefully, na-enjoy nyo yun. Stick around for more games. But first, let's proceed with our discussion. Kanina, we were discussing Carlos Bulosan's My Father Goes to Court, full of social commentary felt not only in America, but in the Philippines as well. Before we proceed to discussing it, let's first discuss the approach that surrounds the literary piece, which is the Marxist approach.
Of course, and who facilitated that? Si Karl Marx mismo. He was a prominent thinker who wrote on topics na related sa economics, political economy, and society. Pinanganak siya sa Germany and he spent much of his time in London, where he wrote many famous works including the Communist Manifesto and Capital. Kilala rin siya for his revolutionary writings favoring socialism and communist revolution.
Also alam niyo ba noong 1848, hindi lang si Karl Marx together with Friedrich Engels published their idea na tatawagin na natin ngayong Marxism. It is a philosophy na kinapapalooban ng economics, politics, and society. Sinasabi din dito na the foundation of capitalism is the idea of private property ownership, which results in the formation of two distinct social classes. So, dito na natin ngayon ipapasok yung ruling class, which is composed of people who actually own property, and the working class, which is composed of people who are exploited, which is aware naman tayo doon. Thus, the two different classes in society are treated unequally as a result of this system naman.
Yes, that's right. And from this Marxism, it branched to the Marxist literary approach used now in literature. Para kay Karl Marx, literature is a product of reality. Kaya naman when writing, sinasabi ng Marxist approach na ang literary text ay laging nakaangkla o nakakonekta to the society, sa culture, history, and also specifically sa political system na nag-e-exist noong ginawa yung isang literary piece. Parang it does not consider a literary text devoid of its writer and the influences on the writer. So hindi mo siya masa-separate, hindi pwedeng paghiwalayin yung gawa doon sa mismong gumawa. Sinasabi lang noon na laging dependent ang literary text sa may akda kung saan yung pinagdaanan ng author, makikitang nagre-reflect dun sa sinusulat niya. It studies the social class to which an author belongs and the effects of the author on his or her society. So, reiterating what I've said earlier, ulitin ko lang, it explores how the author has interpreted the society, culture, and political systems. It emphasizes on the social reality and sa totoo lang, hindi siya gaanong nag-give importance doon sa aesthetics ng isang text?
So, yun nga, no? Yung foundation kasi ng Marxist approach sa literature, ang talaga, really strong talaga siya in reality. Sabi nga, di ba, if there is no literature, there is no literature where there is no subjectivity. Ang mga akda, aminin man natin o hindi, napagtatagpi-tagpi yan. Hindi lamang ng imahinasyon, kundi pati na rin yung mga karanasan ng isang tao. At kasama dito yung existence of many things which humans perceive. Yung living world kasi natin, pwede siyang i-compartmentalize as society, history, culture, and politics under one big unstable compartment called time. And para sa akin na, no literary text and writers can bypass any of these compartments. Ito yung ginagawa ng Marxist approach. Relevant siya today at mananatili siyang relevant sa future.
Yes, and actually to add, the Marxist approach continues to be relevant in our contemporary society because it helps individuals become more aware of the importance of equality para sa lahat ng tao, regardless of their social class. This can also be portrayed in a variety of ways in works of literature. Kaya nga like, di ba, ito yung napili natin, mas mai-improve yung literature work, such as through representation of a social class or socioeconomic status, the relationship between class and power, the differences in the struggles, dahil nga na-mention naman, and ma-mention natin later na makikita talaga nila yung differences between the rich and the poor. And so on, it is essential to acquire the skills necessary to learn how to implement this approach in journalism because it enlightens the audience about the disparities that exist between the two social classes.
Yeah, tama. Pero for now, before we proceed to the highlight of this podcast, which is the discussion of the text, My Father Goes to Court, we have another game for you guys. It's a crossword puzzle. Simply scan the QR code or click the link that will be flashing on the screen in a few seconds. Feel free to pause the video while you're playing so you don't miss out on the discussion.
Yes, enjoy guys!
So, nasolve niyo ba yung puzzle? Feel free to share your experience in the comment section. So, ayan. Okay. Konting hintay na lang talaga at pwede na tayong magsimula dun sa discussion natin sa relation ng Marxist approach sa story na tatalakayin natin, which is My Father Goes to Court. Pero bago yan, let us watch muna the second batch of interviews now.
Hi, I'm Chester Ardelayo Jr. I'm a former UM student at San Sebastian College Recoletos de Cavite, and I'm currently taking AP Psychology at De La Salle University, Dasmariñas. After reading Carlos Bulosan's story, I felt like it left a message or a question because the story is not just about resiliency or happiness amongst poor Filipino family. It is also about injustices, inequality, crab mentality, and so on and so forth. When the rich man saw the happiness and growth of the poor family, he blamed his downfall and filed a case against the unfortunate family. I guess it is an example of a social issue called crab mentality. Actually, there are a lot of social issues and life lessons that are tackled by this. One is when the narrator exaggerated the coins and pennies combined together on the hat that made the rich man fall when it was shaken by the poor man. Maybe it teaches us that the combined love, wealth, and unity of the Filipino family can dethrone or defeat the atrocities of the rich people who manipulates the law. For me, the main point and conclusion of the story is that health is wealth. You can be happy even without money, but you can also have plenty amount of money, but with sick and unhappy family.
I felt that both families had different perspectives of wealth. Is the story good? It's a good story. Also, not really realistic, but it's a story that gives values of how families perceive wealth. What life lessons did you learn in the story? I think more or less the perception of wealth. Wealth can be perceived in monetarily value or the love of your family, the accumulation of food you have on the table, the experiences of having a happy family. the social issues I think they tackle there is like privilege, as well as the abuse of power of the rich man. I think that's he had the advantage of taking them to court because they had the money and even having a lawyer to defend themselves. And then the poor people don't really have that much say. They were just held there. They didn't even have a lawyer to begin with. So in that sense, there's like an abuse of power. So there's a power dynamic. I feel that it's not a good case to begin with. It's like there should be more to what he said. Like it's not. He should have gotten a good lawyer though. I mean that's kind of whack na they had to go through that experience. But in a good light. The plot was really fun though. The ending was so weird though. So yeah. He paid him back through the spirit of the money of the shaking of the coins throughout the court session. So yeah, I mean it's a symbolic story good for children. Yeah.
Hello, I am Fabian Georgette Lapus, a second-year BS Computer Science student from Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila. So after reading the story of My Father Goes to Court, I became fond of the story because Carlos Bulosan took the artistic approach with connecting the dynamic of both the economic status of the rich family and the farmer's family, which is on the less fortunate side. So, although the less fortunate family of the farmer did not eat luxury food like what the rich family or their neighbors eat every day, they were always grateful for the things that they have in life. And I think this is what makes it a good story because a lot of people should take time to read this because it helps an individual to be thankful for the things that he or she has in life, and it makes you forget all of the things that you do not have, but focus on the things that you are given. So one of the social issues that were tackled in the film is how some rich family are unable to be satisfied with what they have, which is why they will always be jealous of what others have and will even blame others for their sickness. So the story offers a quirky ending because the farmer's family was like blamed for stealing the spirit of rich people's food, then he paid them with the spirits of coins. So that's all, and thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Pearl Aybarata. I was a former Hume student from Far Eastern College, Silang, and I am currently studying BS Psychology in the National Teachers College. If we were to take Carlos Bulosan's My Father Goes to Court as fiction, which it is, I would say that it actually has a very good moral lesson, which is there is happiness in simplicity. The protagonist and his family, despite being poor, were able to live robust, healthy lives filled with laughter, in stark contrast to the sickly and unhappy lives of their rich neighbors. As the saying goes, there are things that money cannot buy. However, if we were to look at it realistically, I would say this work is a bit preachy and kind of glorifies suffering through the guise of living a simple life. I do not think there is much room for laughter or robustness in the lives of the poverty-stricken Filipino people, who keep bearing the brunt of the economic challenges that our nation is currently facing today. With the current inflation rates, the 3-year-old ongoing pandemic, and the current regime seemingly doing nothing about it, I feel like My Father Goes to Court is a work of fiction that will, sadly, remain as just that, fiction.
So, how did you feel after watching the interviews? Agree ba kayo sa mga sinabi nila? Well, that's for you to think about. Remember that you can voice out and share your response in the comment section. Comment kayo
Yes, and may sigurado ba kayo nakinig kayo? Like, super interesting talaga ng mga sinabi nila sa interviews. And we now go to the last part of this podcast and its main highlight, where we will discuss and correlate Marxist literary approach with the short story na na-mention namin kanina, My Father Goes to Court. But first, I believe it is important muna for us to recall the plot of the story by giving its summary.
Sige. I believe bigay mo na yan sa akin isa. Tabi mo ako na. Char.
Sige, ikaw na, Gab.
So, ayun. Dito sa kwento, di ba, meron tayong isang mahirap na pamilya na nakatira sa isang maliit na town sa isla ng Bulosan. Doon, meron silang mayaman na kapitbahay na nagmamay-ari nung isang napakalaking bahay. siguro malamansyon yung itsura. Itong may-ari, meron siyang mga anak na madalas dumudungaw sa labas ng bahay para panoorin yung pamilya, yung mahirap na pamilya. So, dagdag pa dyan, meron din silang mga katulong na nagluluto ng masasarap na pagkain sa kanila. And yung mahirap na pamilya, madalas nalalanghap nila yung aroma ng mga putahe na niluluto. Kaya madalas nakatayo sila sa labas ng bahay para maamoy yung mabangong savory smell ng pagkain. So, isang araw, dumungaw yung mayamang lalaki sa bintana and tinitigan ng masama yung pamilya. So, parang kinokondem na sila, ganon. So, tinignan niya yung tatay, pati na yung mga anak, and napansin niya, malulusog sila. So, sa isip-isip niya, parang hindi nagme-make sense kasi bakit malusog yung pamilya kahit hindi naman nila nararanasang kumain ng masasarap na pagkain. Samantalang yung anak niya, yung mayaman na lalaki, mapuputla, payat, kahit marami namang nakahain doon sa mesa nila na pagkain. So, sa paglipas ng mga araw, parang lumala pa yung kalagayan ng mayaman na pamilya. So, maririnig na lang ng mga tao talaga kapag titignan nila yung bahay is yung tunog na walang tigil na umuubo, and naisip nila na yung tunog parang bark daw ng herd of seals. So, with that, parang after nung nangyari, ng mga narinig nilang umuubo, sinara nung mayaman na tao, na lalaki, yung bintana ng bahay nila. Kaya di na rin nila alam kung ano yung nangyari. Pero nalalanghap naman nila na nagluluto pa rin naman sila ng masasarap na pagkain. And isang umaga na lang, dumating na yung pulis sa bahay ng mahirap na pamilya. And dito na nga, nagreklamo yung mayamang lalaki na inakaw daw yung espiritu ng masarap na pagkain na pag-aari ng mayaman na pamilya. So, ang absurd, pero pumunta yung ama sa korte. Yung abogado ng mayamang lalaki, nagtanong siya ng mga katanungan, and nasagot naman nung mahirap na lalaki lahat yon. So, kahit nasagot na lahat, wala pa rin tigil, nagrereklamo pa rin yung mayamang lalaki, and hinayaan na lang na pumasok sa korte yung dalawang anak niya para maibigay, mag-serve as pruweba, evidence, gano'n, parang testimony. Pero bandang huli, minasura pa rin ng judge yung kaso. And dahil nga witty yung tatay, so ayun, may dala siyang hat. Lalaman yun ng coins and pinatnog niya yun. So binayaran niya yung pinintang na ninakaw nila na spirit ng pagkain sa pamamagitan din ng spirit ng coins. And ang ending, na-dismiss naman yung case kasi ayun nga, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, it's very absurd, and natapos yung story na nauwi na lang sa katatawanan lahat. Hindi lang yung family yung natatawa, kasama na rin pati yung judge.
Yeah, actually, nakakatawa nga talaga yung story. Kung mabasahan mo lang without analyzing too much, para talagang pambatang kwento on the surface level. Pero kung i-analyze mo talaga, you can see a lot of social commentaries.
I agree with you guys. Actually, nung nagkikwento nga si Gab, like parang, hello, ano ba yan? Parang nangyari ba talaga to? Ganon. Like, I can't believe na posible palang mag-file ng complete na gano'n, no? Tapos, ayun, yung pinili nating piece of literature ngayon, yung My Father Goes to Court, marami siyang nilalaman na underlying social issues, such as yung comparison nga between the rich and the poor, na pinakita talaga using Marxist literary approach. Pero teka, parang kanina pa natin pinag-uusapan yung Marxism kanina, pero naaalala niyo pa ba guys kung ano yon? And if naaalala niyo pa, comment lang below guys if you can still remember.
So, ayun guys narinig nyo comment kayo. Ang magka-comment, bibigyan ni Isa ng Gcash. Joke.
Bongga naman nun, girl!
So, basta mag-comment kayo mag-comment kayo. So, bago pa man natin simulan yung analysis, di ba napag-usapan na natin kanina yung na-research natin about sa author? Nalaman natin kanina na he experienced social discrimination when he was in the United States. And doon pa lang nakikita na yung Marxist approach, no? Kasi it's interconnected with the author and what he experienced during the time when he was writing it. Thus, I must say na it was possibly one of the reasons why he decided to write the story. It's like he wanted to be seen or heard. Sadly, na-recognize lang yung work niya after he passed away. But we all cannot deny na he really showed us the difference between the life of the rich and the poor. So yun nga, My Father Goes to Court, using Marxist approach, tells the story of two different families, the rich and the poor. Tapos yung socio-economic class ng poor, nire-represent ng narrator tsaka ng family niya sa story.
I agree with that. No? Nag-reflect agad talaga sa buhay ni Bulosan yung themes ng story niya. So, ayan, without further ado, simulan natin sa unang part ng story, yung analysis using Marxist approach. So, according to the story, the poor family lives in a small town on the island of Luzon. Doon pa lang sa part na yon, makikita na natin na their life was simple. And even though the father desires to live in the country, according dun sa story, nasira yung farm nila noong 1918 by one of the sudden floods in the Philippines. So, yung pamilya, they had to relocate matapos ng ilang taon because of what happened. Dito pa lang makikita natin yung possibility na neglect sila, pinabayaan sila ng government. Kasi, bakit sila aalis ng former home nila? Bakit sila magre-relocate, di ba? Bakit parang titira na lang sila dun sa small town instead? Imbis na maibalik pa sa dati yung nasira na farm nila and maituloy na lang yung buhay nila dun sa dating tinitirahan nila.
Yes, and tuloy ko lang. The poor family has a rich neighbor who has everything in life. They have helpers who can cook for them, a nice house, and a good life. Very different from the poor family. Sa story, whenever the helpers were preparing the rich family's food, the poor family would stand near the window to smell the food's aroma. It was shown in this part of the story how low the poor family's life was and different from the rich family. Just imagine instead of eating food, they just settle with its aroma. As mentioned in the story, the rich man looked down on the poor family whenever he appeared near the window. And we can say that the rich man's house was tall and big enough to look down on them. The poor family will look up and admire how fortunate the rich family was.
Yes, and ano naman, di ba? Like, we all know naman that Filipinos, despite their status, always choose to be happy. And with this, as time passed, the family that was living in poverty grew bigger and stronger. Like, yung mga nakikita naman natin, di ba? Like, ang sasaya talaga nila. And, however, the family naman that was living in wealth grew weaker. And because of this, the father of the wealthy family decided to file a formal complaint. Again formal complaint against the father of the poor family, claiming that the latter had been stealing them of the food spirit. This is a representation of oppression because the claim made by the wealthy family cannot be true and defies logic. Imagine nasa base na rin sa background natin. Imagine receiving a complaint of stealing the food spirit. Imagine ako, magko-file ako ng formal complaint kay Gab na pag magkasama kami, nagnanakaw siya ng aroma or ng food, ng spirit ng food ko. Diba? Parang, hello, it doesn't make sense. And ayun nga, and if you ask me, I would probably ignore the complaint. Pero, sadly, in the story, the complaint was still accepted. And the poor family's father had to go to the court and defend himself against it.
Diba? Sa totoo lang ako rin hindi ako makapaniwala na tinanggap ng court yung ganun ka-absurd na reklamo. Ewan ko ba?
Hindi ko rin alam, girl.
Pero ayan nga, the trial started. Diba? So, ayan, back to the analysis. The trial started and we can observe na napakaraming diferensya, napakaraming difference doon sa lives nung rich and poor. So, yung una doon, while the father of the wealthy family, nung pumunta siya sa court, may kasama siyang attorney, yung father naman of the poor family, wala. As in, dala niya lang yung sarili niya. syempre yung young lawyer, educated yun. And perhaps,
Tama.
pag-aral sa magandang university. Ang ginawa ba naman, tinuro lang yung finger doon sa poor father. And dito pa lang, makikita na natin na sa justice system, yung rich, yung mga wealthy, nakapag-afford sila nung mga pinaka-expensive, pinaka-skillful na lawyers. Meanwhile, doon naman sa mga mahihirap, kahit yung gobyerno, hirap pa silang bigyan ng mga skilled na lawyers. Wala silang representation halos. Sa pangalawa naman, nung tatay, nung mahirap na pamilya, nang hiram ng straw hat, doon pa lang na-imply na, di ba? Parang kung gaano ka-low, gaano kababa, and gaano kasimple lang yung buhay nila. And lastly, yung pangatlong nakapansin sa akin na may kita talaga yung difference ng rich versus poor is yung nung pinuno na nila ng points yung hat, parang binanggit dun sa story na coins lang talaga, as in centavos in particular. Walang na-mention na paper bill, just all coins. Parang makikita mo na agad doon na hanggang points lang talaga yung kaya, and parang hindi pa makaabot man lang sa kahit 20 na paper bill para lang mabayaran yung sinasabi ng pagnanakaw ng spirit ng pagkain. And yung kawawang tatay, kailangan pa niyang magsalita ha, as in habang ina-explain niya yung sarili niya, kinokolekta niya talaga yung points around the room and take note around the room. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang galing sa mahirap na pamilya yung points na ipambabayad nila. Kailangan niyang makolekta sa lahat ng taong involved doon, sa lahat ng taong nanonood nung trial.
So, ayun nga, no, nagkolekta ng coins yung poor father, gaya nga ng sabi ni Gab. So, after nun, the judge came to a conclusion that was favorable to the poor father. Pinapakita na ito, no, na yung mga oppressed, they can still benefit from the judicial system, particularly sa mga situations na honest or fair yung person in charge. It is clear from this literature that applying a Marxist approach when conducting a literary criticism is important. Kasi it gives the writer the chance to enlighten other people about sa mga nangyayaring disparities sa society natin. And also, it expands their minds in the process.
Oo. Uy, pero yun nice interpretation yun. Pero ako, if you're gonna ask me, parang I would like to give another meaning dun sa ending ng story. Kasi di ba nag-end siya na nagtatawanan lang sila. So, para sa akin, it represents how absurd and ironic the situation is. I believe it's a mockery na madalas hanggang sa story na lang talaga pinapaboran yung justice system ng mga mahihirap. Na in real life, hindi kagaya nung sa kwento. Yung mahihirap nagsasuffer sa mga bagay na wala naman talaga silang kasalanan at kinalaman. Di ba?
Yeah. Actually, interesting take yan. And I agree at some point. Kasi, di ba, like na-mention ko kanina, sinong magpa-file ng formal complaint for stealing a food's aroma? And, ayun, di ba, with that, I thought of something. Do you guys think, we can compare the story to our system nowadays?
Yes, Isa. Actually, maraming evident na comparison. The rich man can be compared with the rich families nowadays that are selfish and just concerned with their own welfare. Yung family naman ng poor man represents the poor people in our country. The young lawyer caught my attention sa story kasi you can compare him to professionals who forget that they're educated and degrade others. Actually, I'm glad na the judge in the story was equal with his treatment to both families.
Yeah. Diba? Pero kasi, unfortunately, nowadays, poor people often get neglected because of not having the means. They can't have the justice they deserve. And as sad as it seems. Yun talaga yung nangyayari. That's how it works in today's society. And the underlying question here na talagang dapat nating pagtuunan ng pansin, dapat nating ipag-reflect is that can we do something about it or just accept the reality that the rich and the poor will always have two different worlds? I think ito yung tanong na iiwan natin for the audience to think and ponder upon.
Oh, wait lang Gab ha. Hindi ako part ng audience pero that question made me ponder a lot. Like, habang ngayon nagsasalita ako, iniisip ko na actually yung sagot or may sasagot ko ba talaga siya. And ayun, however, I think napapahaba na yung usapan natin. Like, and sa mga audience natin, I believe, nag-enjoy na rin sila. And I think it's time na, like, tapusin na rin natin. And thank you so much for tuning in with us.
Oo nga, ang haba na ng usapan, no? So now, before we end the session for today's podcast, we have one last game for you guys. A word search puzzle. Simply scan the QR code or click the link that we will be flashing on the screen in a few seconds. Feel free to pause the video while you are playing.
Yes, enjoy guys!
So, did you find all the needed words? Feel free to share your experience in the comment section.
Yes, and before we end this podcast, I would like to give a shout out to Miss Catherine Ohano listening from the DLSU Taft campus.
And I think that's it. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We'll flash the answers to all our games by the end of this episode.
And if you enjoyed this episode, like, follow, and subscribe to our socials so you won't miss out on future episodes.
Yes, this is ISCPN signing off.
Bye guys!
Bye. Bye.